We'll turn that on. And we'll turn on Facebook. Go live. All right, looking good. Mastermind with Neil Schwartz. Our special guest today is John Hoffman from Tampa, Florida. Tampa or Tampa Bay?
Well, Tampa Bay is a region, Tampa, Florida.
Okay, got it. I just as I'm saying it, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's right, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. Is that one of your teams?
The Bucs and season tickets holder for the hockey team, the Lightning.
Wow. Good for you. Excellent. So, John, oh my gosh. John and I, when we go to the events, tend to end up walking around the casinos, not in the casino, but around the hotel at about what, 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
for an hour and a half?
Yeah, a quick exercise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. And then we talk about everything under the sun, real estate wise. So it's very good. So I asked John to come in and talk a little bit about his strategies, things that he does. John, you've been in the business how long?
Real estate? Oh my God, 35 years.
Wow. Fantastic.
Listen, I got licensed when I was 5.
You were 5. So, and what did you do before real estate? College. Wow. So you came right out of college into real estate?
Yeah, I took a couple of years off high school before I went to college, and then I went right from graduated from Miami of Ohio, Miami University, and went right into real estate because I had 4 or 5 job offers, and I knew I'd be held back because the superior wouldn't like me because I'm very blunt, and so I've always been self-employed.
Probably a smart decision.
Yeah, I agree.
Good stuff. So, so I understand being the self-employed, but how did you choose real estate? Was a family in it?
Yeah, my brother was in real estate. He was the second Remax operation in New York State.
Oh, cool. Okay. So you started in New York. You didn't start in Florida.
Correct. I sold in New York for 9-10 years.
Uh-huh.
Took a little break. Maria and I moved to Tampa and opened up bagel restaurants.
Okay.
Then after 2 years of that, I said, okay, I'm going to go back into real estate. So we sold the restaurant, and then the rest is the last 26 years of real estate in Tampa.
So when did you meet Mike Ferry and set up the systems? Was what year?
Gosh, I think it was 1999. Jan Newell was a broker at my office and gave me some of Mike's cassette tapes back then. And I listened to those and started following it and had great success. It was September. Went to the retreat he had. He used to have the one-on-one in Florida as well. And I joined coaching then. And that year, I closed 25 transactions. And the first quarter of coaching, I had pended or closed 26.
Wow. So let me ask you, before that, you were in a system. What were you doing before that?
I was, calling some expireds. I was doing Mike Ferry very light, right?
Okay.
When you're in an office back then and you're doing 24, 25 transactions a year, you're a big fish in a small pond.
Right.
And by going to that retreat, and I'll warn everybody, I'm really direct, and so if my offend anybody in advance, I apologize, but I went to the retreat and I'm meeting these people doing 60, 70 deals a year. And I'm like, oh my God, if they can do that, I can do 200.
Sure.
Right. And so then I called Maria, and she was a stay-at-home mom, and I said, it's $1,000 a month investment. And back then it was worth a little bit more than it is today. And so I was committed to do everything my coaches told me. And it was the best decision I ever made. It was going into coaching.
Well, it sounds like it. So you went from 24 to 25 transactions a year to 26 transactions in your first quarter.
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Pretty cool. Very, very cool. So what were some of the changes? I mean, you were doing 25 transactions a year. Clearly, to do that even back then, still took effort, energy, scripts, dialogues, phone calls, door knocking, I would think, right?
Yeah, I didn't do door knocking. I was 6'3". I used to weigh 280. Now I'm 210, 205. And I would sweat too much door knocking, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Florida. But I was kind of working part-time. You see how a highly successful agent operates. I considered myself a part-time agent back then.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean?
Well, there wasn't consistency, right?
Okay.
And so over time, I developed, a checklist of 7 things I needed to do every day. So I graded my success on, did I get up every morning at a certain time? Was I at the office at a certain time? Did I start making my first phone call at a certain time? Did I make so many contacts that day? Did I do powerful lead follow-up? And if I didn't have an appointment, did I practice for another hour every afternoon? So if you did those 6 things every day, it's impossible not to be successful.
And you would grade yourself on that at the end of the day and with a sheet of paper, and then you would keep that sheet of paper?
It was on an Excel, and it was either a Y or an N, right? Yes or no.
Okay.
And if agents did that, and when I coached for Mike for 3 years, I had my clients do that. I had 10 clients at a time. Even agents doing 50, 75 transactions on average 2 months to get an entire week where they did everything they're supposed to do every day.
Right.
So,
that would be really, really powerful.
So by doing everything you're supposed to do every day and you can have a success every day by doing what you're supposed to do every day. I think agents graded themselves too much on only having a successful day if they did a contract.
Okay, got it. And you were grading yourself on the activities.
I was grading myself on the activities because I realized the activities would lead to success, and the size of the transaction didn't matter. Count the transactions, not the money, and do what you're supposed to do every day to be successful.
That's a great thought. Simple and great thought. Good for you. Good stuff. But you weren't doing that when you were thinking you're a part-time agent before you had met Mike, were you? Or were you?
No.
Okay.
The time management wasn't there. The consistency wasn't there. And agents like to think they're busy, but they're not.
Okay. So John, you're a direct guy. You knew at an early age that you couldn't work for somebody else. You had to work as a quote unquote in your own business or your independent contractor. And when you met Mike and he shared a few ideas, I mean, this simple concept of do the work and you will make money. I mean, how did you internalize it and get it? Because as a coach for 35, 40 years, that's tough to communicate to everybody.
I have 4 buyer's agents right now, so I coach them every week, and I just challenge them. So when I first got involved with Mike, I liked his scripts, I liked what he said, and it makes sense. So I didn't have to reinvent anything, right? I mean, I just followed something that made sense, that worked. The only script that Mike has that I don't follow almost completely is the for sale by owner one, right?
You do or you don't?
I don't. I've got my own way of doing that.
Okay.
But, for newer agents or for existing agents, when you see people on stage doing 125 transactions with no buyer's agents or one buyer's agents and two admin, and they all tell you the same thing on what they did to be successful, why do you think you know better if you're an agent doing less transactions?
Well, it's a really good question.
And that's what I ask myself. That's what I ask myself. I'm like, if these guys are doing it and they're following the system, doing 70 transactions a year, that's why I thought I could do a lot more, just because of the way they presented their personality types, and so to me, it was, I didn't need to see anything else. I got out of my way.
Got it. Really smart. So did you read a book like that, or is that innate for you? I'm just trying to get into your head that might be able to be a clue on how we can do the same thing.
Well, no, it just clicked.
Okay.
It just clicked. It's because, I've got agents been in the business for 10, 15 years, and they're doing 30, 40 transactions. They're happy. And if they don't see what other people are doing, when you look at football teams and you see a team come up with a new defensive strategy like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did years ago, everybody copied it because it worked. It's the same thing.
Okay. Got it. Well, that makes sense. So, tell me about your business today. You said you had 4 buyers agents. What's the rest of it look like?
I have 4 buyers agents. Maria and I take listings. We're coming out of the COVID market, which, we started to add some buyers agents during the COVID market, and which is probably the worst market to add new buyers agents in.
Right.
And so our business is still mostly listings, right? And we'll do more listings than buyer sales, and that's because the money is in the listings.
Right.
Right.
So how many listings? What did you end up with in 21? You know your numbers that were?
Oh, and yeah, 21.
Closed?
Yeah, 160 transactions, but then we only have 1 buyer's agent, I think, or 2 buyer's agents at that time, and it was 90-60 to the listing side.
So 90 listings between you and Marie,
Yes.
and then 60, 70 buyer sides. But that was with 1 buyer agent?
1.5.
Got it. And this year, 22?
This year we're going to be, well, it's cooled off a bit. We'll be a little under 200. And like I said, we have 4 buyers agents. 2 are relatively new, and they're averaging probably 3 transactions every 8 weeks, 7 weeks. They're getting going.
A deal and a half every month.
A deal and a half a month. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. And how's your listing inventory with this new market we're running into? Did it slow down a little bit? Did it speed up?
What's interesting, we've been holding steady on the actives and the pending. I track 1 zip code every month, the zip code that my office is in, and we've been at 160 to 164 and 67 to 74 pending every month. Now,
For the zip code.
For the zip code.
Right.
Because I want to focus on my immediate area, because the Tampa Bay market and GTAR, right? Because GTAR includes St. Pete, Clearwater as well, and that's not my market. And so I want to be zip code specific. It's just easier for me. But my inventory is still 20% under pre-COVID conditions.
And how about the number of listings that have come in the market, has that dropped?
Well, no, the number of listings has gone from when we were in the COVID market, our listings are higher, right? So, but erase the COVID market. I want to compare to what was my market like pre-COVID.
Okay.
My listing inventory is 20% less than it was pre-COVID. So while it's high compared to the COVID market, well, that's come and gone.
Okay.
So at historic trends, I'm back to looking at historic trends for actives and pendings and days on the market, et cetera.
Got it. All right. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So what changes have you made, if any, to take advantage of what's going on in the marketplace?
Well, we always want to stay ahead of the market. And so with this market right now is we've got to explain to sellers that homes are still selling, and homes are still selling in my market at a good pace, but it's homes that are in good condition, it's homes that are priced correctly. And if you're not going to be in good condition or you're going to be overpriced, you're going to clog the market. So we've got to educate them that buyers are no longer overlooking deficiencies that they did when the inventory was so low.
Okay.
So if you can share that with sellers and they agree with you, you're able to still sell listings at a rather brisk pace. But you've got to deal from a position of authority and knowledge, right? So if you don't know your market and you don't know your numbers and you can tell them, guys, I know the inventory is bigger, but did you know it's 25% less than pre-COVID? Right? So if your knowledge is strong and you can back it up with examples, and it's interesting, it's because you're still seeing around 12 to 14 to 15% of the listings that come on the market are going under contract in less than 7 days. That is significantly higher than pre-COVID, but that's an indicator that buyers are still looking for homes that make sense from a pricing condition standpoint. So you've got to convey that to the seller so they understand to follow your leads to get there.
Got it. What percentage of your listings are selling, John?
Oh, well, gosh, for the year, 98%.
So that your sellers are taking your advice.
Oh, I don't list them if they don't.
Ah, interesting. Okay. So here's the question. Do you ever run into a situation where a seller, you don't list it at their price and they end up selling it at their price? Does that ever happen to you?
Oh, it's happened in the past, but I don't care. I mean, you can't be attached, right?
So let's talk about that for a second, because it's hard to get a listing in this market for most of us, and the sales have slowed down just a little bit. I mean, you're going to walk away from a listing and you're okay if it sells. Tell me why. What goes on in your head?
My mindset is I'm not going to let a buyer be in control, a seller. I'm not going to let a seller be in control. If they want to start at a price and they're willing to come down and put that in writing at the listing appointment, I'm fine with that. Okay. And so let me give you another example. Every once in a while, you call them expired or you get a lead or whatever that is, and you pre-qualify them because we do use Mike's script every time, right? So if I get a seller, when I ask them, so Neil, what price do you want to price your home for? And they tell me they don't know, or they don't want to tell me. And I ask, they won't tell me how much they owe. And I, if you had to accept the number, what would it be? They won't tell me, right?
Okay.
I said, well, let me ask you a question. When you go to the family doctor and you're sitting in the room and the doctor walks in and says, hey, Neil, what brings you to the office today? Do you say, well, you're the doctor, you tell me?
Okay.
And I asked that seller that if they won't answer those questions, I don't go.
Okay. Makes sense.
They're not going, they're going to want to base it on price only. They're not going to listen to you when you go in, so you just don't go, right? And I think the hardest thing for realtors to do, Neil, is to really understand pricing, to be able to convey it to a seller in a way that makes sense, where the seller believes it. Because usually when I go to an expired and go through the numbers, what I normally hear is, John, why didn't my previous agent explain it to me like you did? Because this makes sense. I said, well, they might not know.
Got it. So when you say that, John, I mean, how are you going through it? Is it when you study the market? Is it, do you preview property? I mean, you've been in the business a long time. You've probably seen everything. But if something new comes up, you make sure you go and see what it looks like. Is that important?
I'll go look at certain situations and certain properties, but you know what, after so many years of the industry, a lot of this just comes natural. I mean, these people came, with my agents, I'll do an open house with my new agents once, just to kind of teach them how to do it. Buyers agents, because I like meeting people. I like talking to them. This couple came in and they wanted to buy the house, but their house is the best priced house in the neighborhood. It's still not selling. I'm like, I'm sorry, here's my card. If you call me, I'll come talk to you about your house, but I can't initiate that contact, right?
Okay.
So they did. I walked in the house, and as soon as I got there, I knew exactly why their house wasn't selling. It was a 4,800 square foot house, 6 bedrooms, bonus room, 5 baths, with a 2-car garage. Nobody's going to buy that big of a house with a 2-car garage.
Got it.
So they had to price it so much below the competition. So the people that were going to buy that house were people that wanted a house that big but couldn't afford it.
And that's how you approached it.
So I approached it. You've got a 2-story home in my market. The worst floor plan you could have is there's more square footage upstairs than downstairs. That's really hard to sell. So that's going to sell for less on a price per square foot, right?
Right.
But then you've got under roof and total roof and here air conditioned square footage and total square footage and the lot and what it backs up to. There's all these different things associated with real estate that it takes a lot of experience and learning knowledge to be able to really zone in on this situation.
Got it. And that comes from experience and seeing property and previewing property. When you started in the business, did you have to preview property at that time?
Previewed property at that time, and anyone that joins our team as buyers agents, they have to preview 5 properties a day, every day for 3 weeks.
Really?
And they have every new construction in 3 zip codes. Yeah.
Interesting. Very cool. So they have to know the inventory.
They have to know the inventory.
Okay. And what about scripts and dialogues?
Oh, mandatory.
Okay. Mandatory meaning, I mean, are you still working? Well, you must be working your scripts and dialogues because you're teaching.
Yeah, no, I am our agents, Maria and the expired script and, and everything is the same. I mean, the interesting thing about Mike's scripts, which I really like the expired script, when do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? And then you go, if you did sell your home, where would you go? Jacksonville. I'm like, isn't that good for you? I love Jacksonville. Well, let me ask you, if you could virtually be assured of going on the market and being in Jacksonville in a new home before Christmas, is that worth 20 minutes of your time? So the closes aren't in the script as often as they should be. So I teach the closings to the agents on when to interject.
Got it. Okay, excellent. So let me ask you this. What recommendations, what suggestions would you give our agents that are on this call right now? It's about 85 people plus probably another 100 in Facebook. What would you tell them to help them do business between now and the end of the year? Kind of what we call run through the finish line.
Well, I can tell you what I did with our group. We had everyone go to the calendar and mark down the days they're working and the days they're not working. Right?
Okay.
So if you're going to take Wednesday and Thursday off for Thanksgiving or Friday, whatever days you're taking off, you're taking off. But then I've got everybody committed to doing, and like I told you at the beginning, these are the things that you want to do every day. That's a work day, right?
Right.
Committed to doing that, but I had everyone come up with a goal on how many buyer sales are they going to have that are going to close this year that they don't already, and how many pending are they committed to have next year? Because
Got it.
if you go into next year with no pending, you really put yourself in a hole, right? But if you go into next year with 5 pending as a buyer's agent, you've got a huge jump on next year's success.
Absolutely.
Right. So we made a contest out of it.
Okay. So that sounds absolutely great. Talk to me. Let's go back for just a second here. You had talked about for sale by owners, doing them slightly different. Is that at one time you had told me that was your real bread and butter? You made a small fortune with that. Is that still the case?
Well, not yet, because they haven't come back in force yet.
Okay.
I love for sale by owner, but part of that's the mindset, right? Look at me, I get excited. I love for sale by owner because they're so easy.
So tell me more about that.
Okay, so if for sale by owner comes on the market, we want to call them on the first or second day they come on the market, and I call them, identify myself as a realtor, and I'm not calling you to list your home. I'm calling you to get some more information because maybe I can help you sell it, right? So I ask a number of questions, and then I ask, is it possible for me to tour your home? Because I like to actually see it firsthand so I can share it with my team at our Thursday meetings, and maybe we can bring you a buyer. So I get there with my notepad and I'm making notes about the upgrades in the house because most realtors don't do that. And believe it or not, the for sale by owners, they wonder why realtors don't make notes, because how can they remember all this stuff, right? And of course I asked, being a realtor, I have to ask you, well, what point would you consider hiring a professional agent like myself for the job of selling your home? And let's say they say a month. I'm like, well, I would be honored if you would consider allowing me to be one of the agents you interview. All right. And they always say, right, sure. But the real hook is they're going to ask me questions, right? And they all ask the same 2 or 3 questions. The one question is, what can they do to the house to make it more saleable?
Okay.
And I'm like, that's a great question. I said, yeah, one of the services we offer our clients is to go through each room to help them declutter and make some suggestions. We might ask you to spend $1, but you're going to make $3 to $5 in return. That's something we do for our clients. Unfortunately, you're not a client yet. Would you like to become one?
Okay, I like that.
Right. And then they do the same thing with the price.
Uh-huh.
What do you think of my price? And I'm like, well, I think it's yours. And they're confused and they go, what do you mean? I said, well, this is the price that you've set that you're going to have to defend if I bring you an offer. And the market will let you know if you've got the right price or not. Then they ask me what I would price it for, and I give them the same line. That's one of the services we offer our clients, is an analysis of the pricing that will cause it to sell for the most money. Unfortunately,
You're not a client.
do an open house. Then I will call them and say, listen, I just listed a house around the corner from yours. I thought about yours. Call them 4 days later and say, we just sold that house. So for sale by owners, they have to like you, they have to respect you. But when they're getting ready to think about listing, if I've spoken to them at least once every 4 days, they're not going to forget me, and I'm going to get the listing appointment every time. What happens is I've got to pre-qualify them to decide if I'm going to go on the listing appointment. I look at pre-qualifying I'm pre-qualifying them. I want to know if I want to work with them.
Got it. Got it. How often do you decide you don't want to work with a particular client? And maybe what's the criteria for that for you?
Well, just 2 weeks ago, we had a referral from it was a divorce, the seller. The husband was on the phone. He was extremely rude to me, and he was going to tell me how things were going to be done. And I said, listen, we're not a good match. I'm going to turn down the opportunity to talk with you or even list your house. I wish you the best of luck, and I hung up, right? I'm not going to tolerate that.
Uh-huh.
I would say I turned down listings. One.
You're breaking up a little bit, John.
Oh, I turned down listing. I turned it down not very often, maybe 2% of the time, 3% of the time.
Okay.
And I do it in a nice way. If I end up going to the house and I don't want the listing, and I'll tell them, I honestly believe that you're firm on your number. I don't think the market's there yet. I don't want to waste your time and bring people into the house and kids and the dirt. So let me do this. I'll watch the market. And when I think the market is hitting your price, I'll call you because I think it's premature for you to go on the market. And then I throw the lead away. I don't have time to keep up with this person.
Right. So you don't follow up on that.
No, but I'm ending it on good terms, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm not telling them that they're crazy on their pricing or they don't know what they're doing. It's the market. It's not your fault, Mr. Sullivan.
Oh, this is great. This is really good stuff, John. John, what's your secret? What's the word I'm thinking of? I keep
Superpower.
Superpower. Thank you.
Secret sauce.
Iris.
Secret sauce.
Secret sauce, or actually, Iris hit it. It's a superpower, John.
You know what? It's my confidence and my knowledge of the market, but I'm not attached to any outcome.
Clearly that comes across.
Yeah, and you know what? And when that comes across with this potential seller, they understand it, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's interesting because guys, one of three things is going to happen. You'll decide to list your home with me. You'll just, you decide, I'll just blah, 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 and I'll decide not to take the listing. Anything's fine. I mean, that comes across, I think, as genuine. And when they ask me to cut my commission or they want me to do this or do that, I mean, it's like, guys, so they sense that. And I think that when agents are attached to the outcome, that's a problem. But I understand you have to be doing enough business and have enough income not to be attached.
So on that thought, where was the point for you where you felt that you had a pipeline of income where you could really work those standards?
Well, if you believe in what I said earlier, that if you work hard every day and do what you're supposed to do every day, after a couple months of that, you're going to realize I've always got listing appointments. I've got sellers. I've got pendings. It's up to you, right? So if you do that and you believe in it because you see the results, then you've got all the power. You only lose the power when you stop working.
And doing the activities on a daily basis.
And doing the activity on the daily basis. It was interesting because I realized on my list, I had to change it to the night before, because if I didn't get to bed by 9:15 and read and fall asleep, I would wake up tired the next day. So the number one thing on my list was be in bed by 9 p.m.
Got it. Interesting. So are you open for some questions?
Absolutely.
All right, good job. All right, questions for John Hoffman from Tampa Bay. Juan Carlos, go ahead.
Yes, sir. John, could you please repeat the list that you mentioned at the beginning when you start?
Sure.
Activities?
On the list that I had to be up by 6 a.m. every day. I had to do 30 minutes of role play. I had to be on the phone making my first call at 7:55. I needed to make 25 contacts. And if I didn't have a listing appointment in the afternoon, I would have to practice my scripts for another hour. And I would not go home if I didn't make my contacts. I'd stop at the grocery store and ask the produce manager I would find people to talk to until I made those contacts, right? And so everyone's got to make a list that works for them or fits on for them. Run it by Neil, and as long as they're income producing activities, and if, let's say, for example, the oddity comes up and I can't lead generate in the morning, I would have to go to the office Saturday morning and make those 25 contacts, because come hell or high water, I was going to do 100 minimum 125 a week.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great question, John. Thank you, John. Good. Other questions for John Hoffman? Raise your hand or just speak out, please. Go ahead, Yasmin. Unmute, Yasmin. There you go.
Hi, John.
Hi there.
What do you do to maintain a very strong mindset on a daily basis?
You know, you don't have an option. You know, Yasmin, what's your goal for transactions for next year?
35.
Okay. So why don't you just think about what you're going to be able to do if you hit that 35, and realize that if you do what you're supposed to do every day, you'll probably do 45, right? So just keep that in mind. It's do what you're going to do every day, and you'll have more success than you've ever had. So realize you're the person who's responsible for your success, nobody else.
Thank you.
Great question, Yasmin. Thanks, John. Other questions?
Question, Neil.
Go ahead, Patty.
Hi, thank you for coming. And I'm assuming that you used the Mike Ferry listing presentation. So how do you bring the stats in? Do you talk about that before you go over the properties, or is it just if they have a question regarding price?
We have a pre-listing package. It's actually a custom box that we have, and we put the market stats in there, but a lot of the other, right? And so I'll bring some statistics also just for that class of property. It's a little bit different for a $2 million house than it is for an $800,000 house. And so in today's market, you have to be the logical choice for the next property to go under contract. We just listed a house that was on the market, and he got outmaneuvered 10 days after being on the market, where he became the 5th best option amongst the buyers. So with an absorption rate of 2 per month, and he was ranked number 5, 2.5 months away from selling, assuming nothing else came on the market. So being able to have a simple conversation like that with a seller and tell him why his house didn't sell, because there's 4 better options in front of him. It clicked. The agent didn't do their job. So I look personally at every one of my listings. I look at the position that we are on the market on every Monday and Friday. I need to know that my listing is the next one to go under contract. And if I've been out positioned, I've got to call the seller and say, hey, we're no longer the best value in the neighborhood. Let's fix that, right? Because the next house, if your market is starting to decline a bit, the next house that goes under contract sets the benchmark. Right? So if the benchmark's 700 and you're at 725 and that goes pending, that one at 700, you're not going to know the sales price till it closes. So you can price your house at that 700 to be the next logical choice. But if you're not checking the pricing on your inventory at least once a week, you have no idea your position on the market.
That's excellent. Thank you so much.
Sure.
That is a really great idea, John. Thank you. Excellent. Good question, Patty. Okay, other questions for John? Anyone else? Go ahead, Melinda, please.
Hi, John.
Hey, Lena.
Hey, how much time and what do you do to train your team?
I've got a series of 18 training videos that I had a professional photographer video. And so we go over the market, we go over, at the end of the day at Tampa Home Group, 4 things have to do for an agent to be successful. The first thing is that I need to educate you. The second thing, I need to motivate you. The third part, you have to take action. And the fourth part is I have to offer accountability. If all four things happen, you're going to have growth. I promise I'll do my three. You have to take action. If you don't, you're not going to succeed. So we've got a whole series of training videos to get them to understand that. Because at the end of the day, to be successful in real estate, you need to find people that want to buy and sell, and then you need to know what to say to them. Most agents don't practice what they're going to say until they find the person and they blow it. Right? Now, the other thing is, I'll spend 2 to 3 hours with every new agent going over our purchase contract that we use, and I make them fill out 5 by hand and present them to me like I'm an uneducated buyer. So when they have to write an offer, they have a really good idea what they're doing.
Good stuff. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Great question, Melinda. Really good. Okay, other questions for John Hoffman, please?
This is Jan Newell, and I have
Jan?
a statement for John. No time, we haven't talked for a year or two. I have to tell you guys what he did even before Mike. We were doing overcoming objections in the office one day, and one was extremely sarcastic, which I know would surprise all of you on this call. But what he said to them, I guess John, the price was 150 and they wanted like 175 because they needed money, to move. And he said to them, why don't you just go to 350?
And make a killing.
Exactly.
No, Jan, thank you, Jan, but she's right. I mean, I'll suggest 600, they want 750. I say, listen, you got a better chance of me being 35 years old again than you getting 750 for your house.
But there's another one that you did that was not sarcastic, that is excellent. And I'll start it and you can finish it. When he would have a person that wanted to overprice and say now 500 and go to 750, he would ask them questions that would allow them to self-discover that their house would almost be the pig in that price range because the others were priced correctly and theirs would look awful. And I'll turn it over to you, John, because that was a great one too.
No, I mean, it's kind of funny. The other thing, Jan, is when people would want to be, we're at 700 and everybody else, and they're still overpriced. I would tell them the good news is you're the best priced house in the neighborhood. The bad news is you're still part of the overpriced club. Right?
Exactly.
And those are sellers that want to price their real estate based on the active comp, not on the solds, right? So sometimes sarcasm and direct honesty. For me, as you know, Neil, I have no issue doing that. I'll bring that right to the forefront and kind of hit them head on with it. But that's just my.
And you always did, and that's a big part of your success, along with your knowledge.
Well, thank you, Jan.
You're quite welcome.
Jan, thank you. Good stuff. Good job, John. Appreciate it. Okay, we're winding
John,
down.
did you repeat your 6 steps, your 6 daily steps? Yes and no. Step 1.
Robert, did you make a note of that?
Call me after the call, Delene. I'll talk to you on the phone.
Okay, thanks.
All right. We'll
I have
we'll
a
be
quick question, Neil.
sure, Christina, go ahead.
At the beginning when he hired the new coach with Mike Ferry, what was the different activities that he implemented to go to the next level?
Oh, it was, I followed the system every day. I called the expireds every day. I mean, I had Mitzi. Remember Mitzi? I don't know, Neil.
Sure, of course.
Then I had Monica Reynolds. Then I had Debbie DeGroat. And Steve, I've had great coaches. I committed to do whatever the coach told me to do. If I'm
Well, let's just stop there, John. That would probably do it in 110% of the cases. I'm looking at all the people here, and there's very few that get close to that, all the stuff the coach told him to do part. We could just stop right there. That's the most brilliant honest, that's actually probably a golden button. You know, Robert, what do you think?
I wrote that down. I wrote that down. Do what the coach says. I wrote it
Do
down.
what the coach says.
Yeah.
Hey, John, this is Fred. I think one of the most important ideas you shared with us, which we all know of being Mike Ferry trained agents, is not to be attached to the outcome, which is exceptionally hard going into this transitionary market that we're in right now with interest rates just over 7% in most cases. Can you elaborate a little bit? Because I know it makes us all better agents. We're more competent and we remember our scripts much better when we're not thinking about the outcome and of course being attached to it.
So, well, Fred, let me ask you a question. A couple questions. Do you call expires and FSBOs?
I call for sale by owners. I haven't been expired as hard as I should.
Okay. So are you prepared for all the new FSBO opportunities that will present themselves?
I am now after this call. Yeah.
In other words, you sharpen your script. Don't bring, it's kind of interesting. A lot of realtors go to for sale by owners. They bring comps and they bring all this stuff about them and marketing materials. Don't bring any of that, right? You know what? Go there and practice what you're going to say and kind of become their friend a little bit and be nice to them and they will interview with you, but you've got to prepare for what's coming, right?
Right.
So, and
I've been very successful with FSBOs. In fact, it was 1986 when I had my first FSBO at 112,000 was the sales price, quite some time ago. So I have no reservations about the for sale by owner market. They've been in short supply, but we know they're coming now.
Yeah. Well, then if you're then all you have to do is if you've got your script down and the system's down, my listing presentation is the same for a $500,000 house as it is an $8 million house. My conversations with FSBO is the same for a condo as it is for a $3 million house. Nothing changes. Everyone gets treated the same. With that consistency and the same process, it goes on overdrive. It's cruise control. And back to your strength, because that's coming. But why don't you call expires?
Probably because I don't start early enough. No, definitely because I don't start early enough. And by the time I get to them, they've talked to 25 agents already and they've hung up on me.
Oh, well, if I call them and you're the 25th agent to call you, I said, really? Lucky 25? I have to talk.
I'm going to write that down. Lucky 25.
So when I call, this is another thing. So when you call people and the scripts are going to ask you, so how long have you lived at this home for? Or how long have you lived at this address for? When they go 8 years, I'm like, 8 years? Oh my God, the average resident moves every 7 years. I'm sorry, you're ruining the average. You got to move, but I can help. Right?
That's good.
Have fun with it. If you can get a person to chuckle on the phone when you're talking to them, you got a huge advantage, right? So don't take it so seriously when you're on the phone lead generating. Have fun with it.
You know, that's critical. You just brought up the golden ticket, because I think a lot of us, including myself, are so concerned about the market transition and we make it and we keep it so serious versus not being attached to the outcome and have a good time.
So how often do you call FSBO and they ask you, did you show my house?
I haven't had them ask me that.
I get that. They go, did you even show my house? I'm like, well, actually,
What do you mean, an expired or a for sale by owner?
Either one.
Okay.
Either one. Did you even, yeah, expired. Did you show my house? And I'm like, well, no, I'm a listing agent. It was your previous listing agent's job to sell it. I mean, I sell 98% of my listings every year. So obviously you're in the wrong camp, right?
Right, right.
Got to be okay giving a little pushback in a fun, little friendly, sarcastic way.
Right.
Because I have the ability to say things to people that if other people say them, the seller might get insulted. You know, if I've got a $650,000 offer and the 660 and the seller's not going to come down, you know, I'll say with the right relationship, you know, this is like the stock market. There's bears, bulls, and the only ones that get slaughtered are pigs. Are you sure you don't want to take this property, right? And when they chuckle when I say it, it drives the point home. When I'm talking to clients, it's a different tonality and a different speech pattern than I'm talking to you guys in. It's a lot friendlier, and I'm trying to rush a little bit because we're short on time. But being direct, bringing in some humor, and not getting upset if people hang up on you or tell you why you're calling. Just move on to the next one, because the agent that does what they're supposed to do every day achieves their goal and has great success. It's the agents that don't do what they're supposed to do every day that get frustrated with their production. There's no other way around it. If you're not happy with your production, look in the mirror and talk to that person and have a conversation on what it's going to take for you to do what you need to do to be successful. It can't be
Great. That's absolutely great, John. Thank you. My
Thank you,
favorite saying is, you are where you are because it's okay with you. And if you're not doing the activities, clearly it's okay with you where you are. You want to get mad at me, but that's a fact. All right, unmute yourselves, please. Let's give John Hoffman a big hand.
Love your style, John.
All right.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So John, we take a few minutes after the call and we kind of go around the room and ask people what they learned. I understand you may have a hard stop right now, and I get it, but if not, hang around for a little bit and listen to what they're saying. We'll have a copy of this in a day or two. We'll send you your copy, and we so appreciate your time, your energy, and your leadership. I mean, you are one of the leaders in this whole industry, and we appreciate you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Neil.
You bet. Absolutely. Okay. What did we learn today from Mr. John Hoffman? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I want to say that it's clear that we all need to have pending sales going into the new year. And for me in particular, you just raised the bar again, John, because I wasn't as hard on the FSBOs and I was limiting myself to geographically friendly for sale by owners, where it really doesn't matter because we have all the data that we need in order to take a saleable listing. And I usually spend most of that first appointment qualifying them and finding out, as you mentioned, do you want to work with them? And then letting them off easy, not burning the bridge when you exit, if in fact they're not realistic. So I think the most important point that I got from here is, other than reinforcing by not being attached to the outcome, is having at least a handful of pending sales going into the new year. So we hit 2023 with momentum. So thank you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Good job, Fred. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Who else? What else did we learn, Patty?
Yeah, thanks. I heard something different that I hadn't heard before. If you do the prospecting in the morning and you don't have an appointment in the afternoon, I thought it was going to say get back on the phones, which is what we always hear, which is good advice too. But he said get to role playing for like an hour and a half, and I thought that was really smart because, you know what I mean. So that's what I'm going to do. I think that's really good.
All right, good. Thanks, Patty. All right, other things we learned from John today. Come on, jump in.
I'll share, Neil. So John, thank you so much. We had Maria on this mastermind a couple years ago, and she's phenomenal. And then you have John here, just knowledge. I mean, how does anyone in Tampa pick a different agent between John and Maria? I mean, my goodness, we've had both of you on here, and each one of you just has your own different value, your own different style. And it's like, my goodness. So thank you. Other than the coaching bit, I put in the chat box, because you said the 4 things about building your team. You'll take responsibility for 3. They have to do action. I'm just going to do that on all my coaching calls. So for all of you that are on my coaching schedule, that's what we're talking about next week. Okay, that was great. But the other thing, John, that I wrote down here is nothing threw you off guard. Like, you're just sitting back in your chair and people ask you questions and you just jump into, well, why don't you do this? Well, let's role play this. Like, nothing catches you off guard. You're just, I'm here. And so I imagine you sitting at a listing presentation, there's probably nothing a seller could say to you that's going to throw you off guard.
No.
And that comes across very clear on this. And so I just think that goes to preparation, confidence, all those different things. And I hope that a lot of people got that you can't be thrown off guard and produce at his level. And that I was just very impressed how you just sat there the whole time, just no issues whatsoever, no difference in tonality, no facial expressions, like in a negative way. Just, that was really impressive. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good. Excellent. Good stuff. Hey, David, did you have something?
Yeah. Hey, Neil. I just wanted to share the way you treat your system for sale by owners, to make friends with them, to stay in touch, and some of the dialogues that you used really stuck out for me, and I made sure to good notes. So thank you for that, John.
All right. Good job. Excellent. Go ahead. Armin, do you have your hand up? Or are you just scratching your nose? Got it. I understand. Sorry. Go ahead, Yasmin.
I have learned from you, John, that you are not attached because you do a lot of business and generate a lot of income. And this comes from everyday work, hard work every day, and move your business to the next level. I learned I work hard and I believe in hard work. So if I generate every day, I don't have to tolerate the unmotivated sellers and buyers.
That's right. Great point. Excellent. All right. What else? Go ahead.
Vasanta.
Vasanta.
Yes. Hi, Neil.
Hey,
thank you, John. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Robert. And special important thing I learn is pricing, the authority and the position of authority and pricing. So John mentioned about the previewing the houses, right? What is that to get the knowledge of pricing and authority of pricing?
I'm sorry, what is the what?
To get the authority on pricing of the properties, because we have to price ahead of the market, right? Pricing. So how do you get the authority of pricing?
Well, it's market knowledge, right?
Yes.
And don't forget, guys and gals, if you're, and I don't know what your market is, if your market is dropping a little bit in value, right? If you price a house what a previous one sold at, say 3 weeks ago, you've made a mistake. You've got to look at the pricing on when those homes went pending, not when they closed.
Okay.
Add the depreciation, and then I'll get a little bit below that, so the buyer thinks it's a value, right?
Yes.
So in a declining market, look at the pending date, not the close date, and so that that's just a little trick. It's knowledge of the market, it's the confidence that you have going in, knowing that your price is right. So if you don't, obviously most agents don't have my experience. So one of the things we have our buyer's agents do is go look at some active listings, and then I actually have them guess what it's going to sell for.
Okay.
And then we compare it 6 weeks later to see how well they did. Were they on target? Were they off target? Why?
Yes.
The one thing I can do for my team members is to share my experience with them, and just so that they get it, because this is an experience-laden career, right? And there's nothing short of experience.
Thank you, John.
Good stuff. Thanks, John. All right, let's go. Anyone else real quick?
I really have to say that I think the first thing that I heard John say was that the thing that he did differently was to do everything you're supposed to do every day. And then he named those things that everybody is still asking, what are those things? Because I think it was like a challenge to even hear them, right? And if we do them every day, then later on he said that we're responsible for that. And we have to think about that responsibility that we have just to do those things. And if we do them, then we'll increase our sales and we'll increase our business automatically.
Absolutely. Thanks, Valerie. Okay, I just saw somebody else had their hand up. Who was it?
It might be me, Rebecca.
Oh, Rebecca, yes.
Yeah, actually, it was the same point that she mentioned. I like that tasks that we had to check mark every day. It seems easy, but this easy stuff we forget. We get into so complicated stuff that we have to do. And it was so great that if we did that 6 or 7 steps, check marked it, at least we would feel better about ourselves, that we are
100%. 100%. Absolutely.
Is Robert, are you a coach?
Yes.
You know what? Everyone create their list and give it to Robert. Give it to him every week.
I would gladly accept that challenge.
I mean, and the only reason you won't do it is because you won't be accountable. You don't want to be accountable because you're not going to do it, right?
But wait a minute, Don. I need the golden ticket. I don't want to do. Are you kidding? I got to make 20 calls this morning. Okay, let's talk about something else. Should I go play pickleball?
I think you should put that list on your bingo board.
Oh, that's interesting.
Josie, it's a great idea. Next week, one of the bingo boxes is going to be, yes, that list. Great idea.
That's awesome.
And then the other box is going to be, I did it.
Yeah. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'll put it on there.
Exactly. Good stuff. All right, look, we are a little over time. We appreciate your time, John. This has been great. Everybody unmute yourselves. Unmute yourselves. Let's give them another big hand. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Great stuff. All right, everybody. John, thank you. Robert, you want to put up who's the next
What
person?
was your big takeaway, Neil?
We always run through the finish line. We're doing the running through the finish line. I talk about the pendings, but I don't think I ever couched it in the way John couched it, that we talk about it, but we don't make it so important. And it's like oxygen, having enough pendings, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, whatever the number is. That's like oxygen. So thanks, John. That was fantastic. Okay, Robert.